Hello all, just wishing you a happy Thursday, maybe it's Thursday morning, the unofficial 1 year anniversary of the pandemic. Wah, wah, wah. That's not a happy day, but I'm hoping that you're getting your vaccine soon. Maybe June for me, maybe July, we'll see. Anyway, it is a rubbing your stomach, patting your head kind of day around here. I have a tendency to coil build things quite quickly, or not that I throw things quite quickly, but I tend to generate a bunch of stuff. Like if I throw 20 mugs and then I have to think about decorating them and then glazing and it actually takes me quite a lot of time. So that's off the boards right now. But what I've done is I built these two big coil pieces, and then I've got those two chickens in the oven. I'll talk about them a little bit more at some point, but the other day I posted a video about how I put white cottontail Mako Stroke and Coat glaze over the whole thing to fake a Maiolica. And then I didn't fart, I just left that, and then I put other glazes and underglazes, black spectrum underglaze over top. And I was going to put clear glaze over top of the whole thing, which I usually do right away. And with the Makos, it's pretty stable, but not so much with the Spectrum underglazes, which, as I'm brushing it on, so I didn't want it to turn into this giant smeary mess. So what I decided to do was to sinter. Do you know that word, sinter? Just cook it on a little bit. So I threw them in the kiln at cone 010 once. And what was really nice is that the glazes kind of sunk into the white glaze, and the black Spectrum, I love that stuff. It just sits on top. It's got a slight sheen to it. So I touched up some spots where some flowers and bits and bobs pulled a little bit. Again, this does not bother me whatsoever, but I just wanted to put a little bit of extra black in around those flower attachments and such, and then beefed up the colors a little bit here and there, and then added more dots. And this is what goes on in my brain. So on one hand, I'm waiting for the kiln to come down from about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm a really impatient person, and so I just, maybe at the end of the day I'll take it out. I usually start my days pretty early. Well, I start my days in bed, like at 6:30 or 5 because I have insomnia, and I do a lot of looking up stuff online. I might have mentioned that before because the dogs are still sleeping and they don't want to get up. So what am I going to do? Wake them up? No. So I glean a lot of stuff going on there. And then I get up about 7 and clean up the remnants of whatever dishes I didn't do from last night's feast. And coffee. Today, I had a lovely hour or so long talk with Katrina Chater, my former teacher from when I was out in Alberta. And then we became teaching colleagues when I went back. And now we are like retired friends. Anyway, she's quite a force to be reckoned with. And she lives up in a little place in Newfoundland, and I think it's her version of Schitt's Creek. We were talking about that the other night, and I'm pretty sure that's what you've got going on there with Rom. Anyway, back to what's going on here. I deliberately just left this in plastic because we can reveal it together. Again, I used clear garbage bag or drop sheets, even, those thin plastic drop sheets. But I find that, clear plastic garbage bags, because dry cleaning bags still breathe quite a bit. And it's hard to get things completely watertight. Sometimes I need to backtrack that. Sometimes I'll give the pieces a little spritz, like there was it Holly Hunter who sprayed perfume and walked through the plume. Like I'll give it a spritz from the distance just to get a little bit of moisture in there. Sometimes I'll actually just spritz the plastic and then quickly put it on top. And there's always plastic underneath so the bottom doesn't dry out, because I like to carve the bottoms. Fancy bottoms too is a good tagline, right? And this piece is the second piece that I was working on. The first piece is quickly setting up. So again, the rub your stomach, patting your head, like while I'm thinking on this, I always turn my head and oh my God, what am I gonna do with that one? What am I gonna do with that one? So I toggle back and forth. A lot of the ideas that come to me, like if I go into my Christie's and Sotheby's catalogs, or I start going down the rabbit hole, or Peter Lane starts sending me like kooky ideas from the past. Don't mention that Moss store from New York. If you were around in the 90s and you saw that, that was a thing of beauty. But the ideas come fast and furious, so I really have to calm down, little otter, and I have to pay attention to what I'm doing because things get quickly out of control, as you'll see here. I'm going to leave the plastic on the bottom there as I'm working on it, and I'm going to try and dim the lights just a little bit here, so maybe you can see. Like I'm going to take off my glasses too, because I'm nearsighted and I'm doing this all day, and it makes my eyes like crazy making. So I tend to work a little bit better without what's going on. If you can see here, let me see if I can, rather than take the camera off, maybe you can see what's going on there. There are, and let me just see if I can tone down the rustle. There's a pun in there. Tone down the rustle factor with the plastic in the bottom there. So what I have here are, I have these pigeons, and there's a Pittsburgh penguin drawing on there too. Let's turn this around. I have these pigeons that I've drawn on. This is a whole another conversation. I'll get to that when I do a Mishima demonstration. But basically I trace that onto plastic, and so there's outlines or gestural rough outlines and tracings of these pigeons. And originally I had them also wearing headsets, kind of like the Ming Dragon vase. And then for some reason I was like, I want them to have little fez hats on there. So this is going to be another blue and white number. And then in between, and again, I'm just going to keep it close as I can for as long as I can, maybe, because you can see things, see what's happening a little bit better. But what I did was I actually used these pigeons, and some people hate pigeons, and I think they're the noble bird. But what I do is I trace them onto the surface with, of course I can't find it, a wooden tool. And so I go around lightly, you know, to kind of give like a little bit of a pencil line there. And then I take it away, and I have the outline of the pigeon there. This is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to see if I can swivel around here without destroying this entire setup. Blah. But I go in there, and again, I have yet to try Diamond Core tools, so don't inundate me with comments on that. I'll get around to buying some. They're very expensive, so I gotta save up my coins. Anyway, so once I've got the tracings, what I do is I take a variety of, you know, the Kemper tools, which are fine. They wear out just because I use them so much when I'm doing carving. So I've got the flat head, and there's a wide one, and then there's a less wide one, and then there's a small triangle, and then there's a big triangle. It's like a puppet show going on. So depending on the kind of line that I want to get in there, I will begin to rough it out. And I don't want a lot of detail, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to actually sponge it down slightly so that I'm just getting like a really muted outline of what's going on there. I'll bring everything into detail when it comes to a little bit of underglaze painting and a lot of China painting over top. Hopefully don't run out of that blue. I'm gonna have to go over and steal some from Remus. Anyway, so I'll go right around, and I wonder if I have one that's a little less defined. No, they all kind of got defined yesterday. Yesterday I had super low energy to the point where I was a little bit worried that maybe it was coming down with I did go for a COVID test just because, you know, better to be safe than sorry, but I just felt a little bit just run down. So I just hid out in the studio and decided not to do any videos today. If you look at the original drawing, there's quite a bit of like mark making and details as far as feathers go, but I just want it roughed out a little bit. Not a critique, an observation. I see sometimes when people do sgraffito or do carving, they use their tools like a one note wonder, one hit wonder, right? like a Rick Astley song, even though I love his song. What's it called? Never Gonna Stop Me Now, or something like that. So when I was at Kent State doing my grad program, the illustrious Richard Notkin came to visit, and I kid you not, like he worked on the tiniest of little things for hours on end. And it was it certainly wasn't painful to watch. It was super interesting. And he did this whole thing on I Ching teapots that was super fascinating. But here's the thing: is if you draw a line, can you? I don't know. Let me see if I can tilt that a little bit there. But if you draw a line, the same line over and over and over with one tool at one depth, it never has any kind of it doesn't really project depth. I think in our intellectual mind, it's like, okay, I'm drawing into the surface, ergo, it's deep, right? But you got to think about like either the lighting of where it's eventually going to end up. Let's just say a museum or a gallery or somebody's home or whatever. And the lighting that comes down from above or from the sides is going to hit all those little angles. So you want to think about that. Where do you want to cast your shadows? So I would say that Richard Notkin is an absolute master at that, in that he was making these commemorative tiles for Archie Bray, and they were just these small, I don't know, something agonal tiles. I don't know how many facets they had on the side, but he made a mold, I'm sure, to press them out, and they sold them and raised money. But what was fascinating was like the amount of relief that I'm carving into these pigeons is like way more, like double at least what he was carving into the like the original, the mold for the commemorative tile. So what he was the one who, and Kirk Mangus, actually Kirk and his drawing on his pieces or carving on his pieces was just phenomenal. Like they could just be sitting out in the regular daylight of the studio, and those angles were like bang, 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 aggressive strokes. I really got the coffee burps this morning. Aggressive strokes, and so the light would hit and then cast a shadow, and hit and cast a shadow. And he's got super angular faces and just line drawings and patterns, and it was so fascinating. Richard Notkin's, you could hold the tile and just kind of pivot it till the light came down, and it would just, like the kilns were, I think it was like, had the kilns on there, and it was just phenomenal, like how it popped. So the one thing that really stuck in my mind was that, and also he put emphasis, and I'm sorry if this ever gets back to Richard Notkin, hopefully he won't remember. There's no way he would remember me. That's for sure. It was just a young punk at the time, and probably pretty meek, right? But the one thing he said was like, think about those undercut lines. And when the light comes down, those sharper lines, those deeper lines are what are going to cast a shadow. It's hard. In my regular studio light, let me see, you know what? Let me turn this way down for a moment. There. You can see that there's quite a lot of activity going on there, right? And this is a good lesson for me to maybe turn down the light on the work. I just like to have the whole background brighter so that you can see what's going on. But I'm going to concentrate on those undercut lines so that when they actually they pop from the whole vase going on there. Yeah. So this is something that I can absolutely lose my mind in so many ways during the day. And this will take me another probably couple of days. I have to work pretty quick. I have to spend dedicated a couple chunks of hours on this, and then do the dog thing, and then do this, and then do the post office thing, and do this, and grocery thing. But and then I'll actually put in a little bit of, hopefully some later hours today. So yes. I don't worry too much about the burrs because I'm going to sponge it down a little bit. And again, I'm not going to go too much into the detail of everything because I'm going to bring all that feathery line work back into view with China painting at the end. So that's gonna take a long, that's gonna take a long time. So that's kind of that as far as the carving technique goes for me, and that's how it sort of works out. As far as the decoration and design goes, I'm going to pull this back so you can see it a little bit. This is wackadoodle. This is really wackadoodle what's going on here. I've got these sort of, they're not quatrefoils, that's not the word, but they're these sort of flower bubbles that will be going on there. And my want is to like texture the crap out of it. You know, with like these pock marks, which were just made with the back end of, you know, paintbrush. I went to school with a fellow named Mike Knox, and Mike, where are you now? Where are you living now? But he was really great because he taught me, he was a fellow student, and he was talking about the use of tools and how you can have a tool and it's intended for one thing, but isn't it fabulous when you just discover like another use for it? So I have a number of paintbrush tools that I really love, like the mark making that it does. So my want is to like pock here. I might create a few situations where that happens, but at the same time, I kind of want to be able to China paint in all those spaces too. So I'm going to leave it as best as I can. This heat in my studio is really even and great, and so, but sometimes when it hits, I guess it would be like you're in the States, like 30 or 25. It's not that it actually gets cold in here. It just gets, there's something in the air. So I have a little space heater, and it's not like I really don't need it, but the dogs kind of like it because they're under the bed there. But if I turn that on while I'm working on this, just that extra little heat really dries things out. So I have to be kind of careful about, you know, what the environment is when I'm working on the kiln. I just take a wetted sponge, a dampened sponge, like not wet, when I have an area done. And because I work so slow, I like to take a lot of pictures of things and share them, of course, to bring you along on the journey of things. But I find it sometimes really frustrating because I am a little impatient. So having those details come back to me and being able to see them online. And also when I put them online, I see not necessarily the flaws, but what direction I want to go into. So even if I just like get this section done today, or like maybe I'll actually even get this face done today, that would be super cool for me. And then I can have a little bit of self-satisfaction. My dear friend Kabir, who I also went to Kent, everything happened at Kent State, it seemed, right? I remember he wandered into the studio, and I was always working so fast. And he dared me to like work on something for longer than a week. And I was like, shut up. And I had a really hard time slowing down and just working on something for a week. So I've learned since the mid 1990s or late 1990s or whatever it was. So there'll be some sponging action that goes on here. There's the pigeon with the fez hats. These are like volume dials, or they were volume dials when they had little headsets on. So I have to think about what those are going to turn into now, but that kind of thing doesn't worry me. Like sometimes I just, like that answer will come. It'll be like, oh, I can put a decal in there now, and maybe I'll round out the sides a little bit, and maybe it'll just stay a weird ceramic volume of sorts. I added these crazy additions on the other day, and it's not often that I lose sleep over my pieces, but I started to second guess it, and I was like, what's going on? So I did take a picture of it, and I realized what was happening was that it was too bottom heavy. There needed to be something that balanced it and filled it out. I don't know what they are. I kind of have an idea of what they're going to be, but what I did here, it might be easiest to take it off here. You can see I gave these two upper editions nickel nichrome earrings, so I can hang something from there. And then these two doodads are going to be like a stage for something. So those are in my mind. I can't tell you about it yet because I'm still working it out, and you know, it'll be a surprise. So that's that. The additions are drying out quite quickly, so that's another. Actually, I should probably work on those, but they're not speaking to me quite yet. So I'm gonna work on that today, and then catch up on my many podcasts. Obama and Bruce Springsteen, they have a most excellent tier-worthy podcast. There's a new podcast about the history of the Chippendales Empire nightclub. It's so insane. It's so insane. And what else was I listening to? Smartless has got a great interview with George Clooney on it this week. So those are some of the things that I'm working on today, in addition to pumping out some decal orders and running to the post office as usual, and thinking about what to cook next, always, right? So I'll keep you posted. I'll take a picture of this, and I'll take a picture of the chickens when they come out of the kiln, and they might go back into the kiln. They got resintered again to cone 010, so I might actually slap a little bit of clear glaze on some sections that I want to pop and be glossier. I want to leave some matte, so there's that, again, visual push and pull between things. But I'm glad I turned down the light volume a little bit so that you can see a little bit more of what's going on. Anyway, if it is Thursday, then we sign off for Thursday, and we look forward to the possibility of Friday, another Friday happening in the world today. So happy studio making wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.